Hey Wargamers, it is finally time for another army list review video. Now, if you haven't seen one of these before, essentially I take lists that have been sent to me by my patrons over on Patreon. I review them, I talk about the things that I think work well, the things that I think could be improved, and then revise the list while trying to maintain the overall spirit of the list. So if it has certain elements that the author really enjoys or has a certain type of theme, I try to maintain that, but tweak it to be a little bit more effective, to kind of cover more bases, that sort of thing. So that's what we're going to do today. Again, we are in Battlescribe here, so if you haven't used Battlescribe, please do so. It is a fantastic program that makes a lot of things a lot easier. So, right. Today's army list, of course, is a Tau army list, 2,000 points. It is comprised of a Battalion detachment and a Vanguard detachment, and essentially it's designed to have 4 components. It's meant to have kind of a fire base, 2 flanking units, and then a deep strike aggression unit. So, kind of a hammer and anvil is how this list was presented, and it also has a scythe. So, a bunch of different components that are all moving and working in unison is the general idea here, and that's what I'm going to try to maintain in my revision in the end. So let's start off with the Battalion detachment. It includes a Cadre Fireblade, of course, a fantastic unit to have in your list. Great marker light support. Pretty much every Tau list should have a Cadre Fireblade in it, I think. And then we have Commander Shadowsun. Shadowsun is a fantastic buff unit. Now, we don't have a specification of which unit is our Warlord here, but really, I'm assuming that it's going to be the Cadre Fireblade in this scenario, but maybe not. Commander Shadowsun, probably not your Warlord here, but she really has the value of amplifying the power of your army by calling Kaoyun twice and then doing things like command and control node, using your command points to really leverage the strength of your army and drive things home. Because Commander Shadowsun is in here, I'm assuming this is a Tau detachment. In fact, it has to be a Tau detachment. I'm assuming that the army is a Tau detachment army. So all the detachments are Tau sept. Otherwise, we would have a little bit of inconsistencies in here. So we are working with a Tau sept because of that. But so yeah, the HQ section here, looking good. Good start. Troops, we have 3 5-man Fire Warrior units. They include a Shazwi with a marker light. That marker light is a great component of this list. It's desperately needed. This list does not have a ton of reliable marker lights. It does have a fair number of marker lights in it, and we'll get to the other sources later on. But as far as marker lights go, I have my preference for the character models, but after the character models, really I like marker lights embedded in Fire Warrior units like this because it gives those marker lights a lot of protection. You have to kill all the extra Fire Warriors in order to get that one marker light, and that's a really useful thing. It makes your marker lights last a lot longer. So marker lights on Fire Warrior units is nice, but these guys are going to be mostly for objective grabbing and for board control. They're not going to be for dealing a lot of damage because you only got 15 of them. Of course, you can amplify their damage using the Cadre Fireblade, but still, we're only dealing with 15 Fire Warriors here. That's not an overwhelming amount. Moving on to elites, we have a lot of stealth, and this is where those flanking units come in. Everything we've talked about so far really has been part of the fire base, and some other things we talk about a little bit later will also be part of the fire base, but here are our flanking units. So we have a 3-man stealth suit unit. One of them is a Shazvray with a marker light and target lock. I'm not a huge fan of having marker lights on stealth suits. I think it's fine, but really I think this is mostly done just because of points, because you had the points so you can throw it in there. Why not? But overall, marker lights on stealth suits kind of a meh choice, because really those stealth suits are probably going to be in harm's way, but also are going to be moving around trying to be dodgy and stuff like that. I'd rather have them be able to do their burst cannon damage and stuff like that instead of firing a marker light. I mean, that's a pretty expensive marker light, right? A stealth Shazray at 34 points for a 4+ to hit is not super awesome. Instead, I'd rather have that guy just do his own thing. Stay in his lane, bro. Stay in your lane. All right, so moving on to the next unit, we have another stealth suit team. Again, these are part of the flanking unit, so we have these 2 small stealth suit teams, and they have what's this? They have big brothers with them. They have 2 Ghostkeels, 1 for each stealth suit team. So you have kind of a buddy cop thing going on here. We have a Ghostkeel and a unit of stealth suits that can be on either flank. Ghostkeel has 2 burst cannons and cyclic ion raker, as well as advanced targeting system and target lock. I think this is a great way to run these guys. Advanced targeting system works very well on burst cannons and on cyclic ion rakers. So you're getting a lot of bang for your buck here. Target lock is good too, because again, if these are flanking units, they are going to be moving around. And so we want the target lock to help facilitate that movement while maintaining the, let's be honest, meager amount of firepower that Ghostkeels have. Ghostkeels, their biggest strength is not the damage that they do, although, you get some good rolls, they can put out some hurt. Their strength is in their ability to control the tabletop and soak up shots. So having 2 Ghostkeels on the battlefield, they are going to be there for board control more than anything, really. They can do damage, but this is where they shine, is in their tankiness. And so, yeah, those guys, those are your flanking units. That's kind of an essential component of this list. So I'll be looking to maintain that type of element in the revision. Normally I wouldn't necessarily include this amount of stealth suits and Ghostkeels in my standard tournament list, but this is what we're going for today, guys. So for fast attack, we have a unit of 6 marker drones. So this is, again, the other main component as far as marker lights go. We have 6 marker drones. This is a little sketchy. Marker drones are not a fantastic source of marker lights. They do have the stable platform special rule, which helps. But really, for the same amount of points, you can get far better marker lights. I mean, you can essentially get two marksmen for the same price, and they are going to do better in terms of staying power and delivering marker lights than your 6 marker drones. So if I were to be looking for marker lights, I would not take these drones. Instead, I would take 2 Firesight marksmen. And then additionally, you could say, well, you can use these marker drones for saber protocols, but then, you should be taking shield drones instead. And in fact, that's what the second entry is here, is 6 shield drones. A great unit. Shield drones, a staple unit should pretty much always be in a list that includes any number of battle suits in it. So, yeah, I think the shield drones here, good choice. I wouldn't include more than 6 without the presence of an ethereal. 6 is kind of my upper limit just because of leadership. Again, drones have a leadership of 6. Super easy to, lose more than you should just based on morale. So 6 is kind of my upper limit there. So that's cool. Then in heavy support, we have the, almost, kind of last component of the fire base. We have a unit of broadsides, and this is going to be the unit that gets all the loving from Shadow Sun. So we have 2 broadsides with high yield missile pods, smart missile system, and advanced targeting system. Love it. That's the way it should be. And then we have one that has a heavy rail rifle and a drone controller. The drone controller presumably to help with the marker drones. But again, we kind of talked about that. If we're looking to use those for saber protocols next to these broadsides, really we want shield drones instead. So this last guy here with the heavy rail rifle, I would switch away from the heavy rail rifle. You get 1 heavy rail rifle, it's 1 gun. It's not going to make or break your overall strategy. Yeah, you could get a lucky shot in to kind of finish something off, but I am a fan of redundancy. I'd rather have a more solid footing in fewer weapon types probably than having a really weak footing in a ton of different weapon types. So here I would switch that heavy rail rifle away and lose the drone controller as well if we're going to be switching away from marker drones. Right, so that's the battalion detachment. Lots of good things about that. Again, I think it really illustrates the overall feel of the list with that heavy emphasis on stealth. For the next detachment here, we have for the Vanguard detachment, we have a commander in Cold Star battlesuit with 4 fusion blasters. You can't complain about that, right? I mean, that's pretty good. I think Cold Stars are a fantastic unit if you are looking to be aggressive, right? The challenge with Cold Stars, of course, is not to be too aggressive. You gotta have some restraint. You gotta be able to go the distance and wait that first turn. Don't rush your Cold Star out on turn 1. It will die, and you will be sad, and you will have lost 162 points for very little gain. So hold that commander in your line that first turn, but after that, have him zip around. Give him some support, and he will make you a happy player. So that's fantastic. Elites. This is our sickle element, so our deep striking element. We have a unit of 3 crisis suits. Let's see, we have three plasma rifles, 2 plasma rifles, and a drone controller. That drone controller will come into play in a moment here. Plasma rifles, and I've talked to the author of this list, so we know this already, but for all of you at home, plasma rifles are, kind of my sweet baby child weapon type from back in the day. I always wish that plasma rifles would be more effective, but they have a very, very narrow niche or niche, however you want to pronounce it, that they are actually an optimal choice. So really, if we're looking for kind of this high power strike unit, we want cyclic ion blasters and fusion blasters on these guys. Then we have another unit of crisis battle suits. This time they have 2 missile pods and a velocity tracker each. These guys are kind of in an awkward position. If you're looking for missile pods, broadsides are hands down the way to go. So I would much rather spend these points on a broadside if I'm looking for missile support. Additionally, the inclusion of the velocity tracker, well, nice. And maybe this was probably done for points reasons, but the velocity tracker here is not going to give us a 50% increase in output, right? So the velocity tracker improves our ballistic skill against things with fly, but it's not improving it by 50%, which is what an additional missile pod would do. And this is why, especially on crisis suits, I always take the full loadout of weapons. I don't take support systems on crisis suits because that one support system represents a 50% decrease or rather a 33% decrease or a 50% increase in your total output. So either way, however you look at it, increase, decrease, you're getting much more by adding an additional weapon compared to taking that support system. So I'd stay away from that. Finally, we have a crisis bodyguard unit. Those crisis bodyguards have 3 burst cannons each. This is cool, but those bodyguards, they are presumably there to take wounds for the Cold Star. I think a much more effective way of doing that is to load up one of these crisis suit units with a complement of shield drones. And when those crisis suits hang out with that Cold Star, those drones will be able to save your protocol for the battle suits, regardless of which one they are. But realistically, that Cold Star should be protected by target priority via the character rule by the crisis suits and drones anyway. So, no matter how you look at it, really, I think you can do a more effective job by including drones than using bodyguards. Bodyguards, if you take a wound on them via the bodyguard rule, is super expensive. That's a super expensive wound compared to just taking a mortal wound from Savior Protocol. So definitely the way to go. Burst cannons on these guys. We got a lot of burst cannons, right? So we have a bunch of burst cannons up here in terms of, where are they? Boop, up here. The Ghostkeels have them. All the stealth suits have them. Plus we have our fire warriors. And then down here we actually have some more. So burst cannons, it's okay. I think if I was going to be going the burst cannon route, I would either go with just more fire warriors, or I would go with a hazard suit and load that guy up with drones and support systems and everything like that. So that I would stay away from this. I'd repurpose this unit to be a little bit more punchy and not quite as not quite as reliant on volume of fire with the burst cannon setup. And then, like I mentioned, finally we have a unit of 10 tactical drones. That's 20 pulse carbines. That's a lot of shots. But we have 10 gun drones here. And like I mentioned before, my limit is 6 without an ethereal. These guys, as soon as you take a couple gun drones, as soon as you lose a couple gun drones to shooting or to saber protocols, notably, if they're doing their job and dying because of saber protocols, that does not mean that you don't have to take morale. So you still have to take morale from saber protocol losses, and these guys will basically be gone in a turn, maybe 2, if you're lucky. So I think there's some inefficiency there that I would stay away from because of that. So right. Here's our list. I think the things that work well with this, I like the board control elements. I like the thought that's gone into the overall strategy of this. The flanking units, the deep striking units, I think are good elements. I don't think you necessarily need 2 flanking units. A lot of the things that you are going to be doing with your deep striking unit are somewhat redundant with the with one of the flanking units, right? You position on one side. We are not a close combat army, so we're not worried about like pinching someone into position as much. So having your deep strike unit and your 2 flanking units is a lot of mobility, a lot of board control, but I don't necessarily think you need as much redundancy in your flanking as we currently have. So I might pull back on that a little bit and then repurpose that deep striking unit to be a little bit more punchy than it is. Overall, I like it though. I think it's a fun list. It's cool. And we have a nice array of functionality here. So that's the original list. Let's take a look at the revised list. All right, and here is the revised list. A couple notes. I've taken care to include the SEP choice and also the inclusion of sergeant characters when available. I think it's important to be explicit about that just so everyone's on the same page when you go to a tournament or have a pickup game. Everybody knows what's up. So, all right, so here for our HQ, again, we have a Battalion detachment, a Vanguard detachment. I'm maintaining the overall feel of the list, just making some tweaks to make it a little bit more pokey, I think. So, here we go with the Counter Fireblade and a Commander Shao Sun. Yeah, I love these choices. Nothing to complain about, but you will notice that neither of these are my Warlord, and we'll get to why that is in just a moment. For troops, I have 4, not 3 strike team units. I had some points. I want to beef this up. This gives us a little bit more ability to deal with infantry, but also a little bit more, objective secured, objective grabbing stuff, backfield shenanigans, and most importantly, the ability to utilize the volley fire rule from our Counter Fireblade a little bit more effectively. So yes, we have those guys. 3 marker lights across the 4 units, not 4. So it's important to keep track of which unit it is that does not have the marker light. For elites, I've condensed our stealth suits down to 1 unit. It's not 6-man, right? So I lost a couple stealth suits, but let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stealth suits now instead of 6. I like having larger units of stealth suits just because, you do lose guys. They do run into challenges. And so if you have a few more guys in the unit, I feel like they actually can throw their weight around a little bit more effectively. So we have this 1 unit here, and then we still have the 2 Ghostkeels. Again, this was a central component of the list. I think the 2 Ghostkeels plus the stealth suits together make 1 good, flanking unit. Or, you can kind of spread them out a little bit. But either way, having that ability to have that massive stealth, early board control is super awesome. So I like these guys. These are fun. Heavy support, I've changed all of our broadsides into high-yield missile pod broadsides. Again, that one heavy rail rifle broadside wasn't doing a whole lot for me. I've included that one of these is a Chazvray as well. Again, being explicit about that. You could break this up into 3 different units, but then you wouldn't get the super awesome buffs from Shadow Sun across all of them. So we do want this as 1 unit just for that reason. You're going to get a lot more out of them if you're able to Kauyan them plus command and control them all in one swoop. So having them as 1 unit is really beneficial for that reason. They also come with their very own little pack of shield drones, because yes, these guys will get shot at as soon as the enemy can. So you need those shield drones here. They need to protect their buddies. We need shield drones for these guys. Moving on to the Vanguard detachment. This still looks pretty similar to what it was, but definitely has the more substantial changes compared to the other detachment. Here we have our Cold Star as our Warlord. Now, normally I would say don't do this. I would say do not do this because your Cold Star is your most likely HQ unit to die, I think. But in this list, I think it makes sense. I think it works because we are going to have this Cold Star and he's going to be surrounded by these crisis suits and they're going to be punching pow, pow, pow. And we would really like to have 3 Unity Devastation on those shots. So, yeah. 3 Unity Devastation on this guy, is going to work well turn 1 when he's hanging out with his fire base, and it's going to work well when he's out and about on the battlefield too. So he's our Warlord here. Just try not to let him die. Just try really hard. So yeah, he's your Warlord here. For elites, we have 2 Firesight Marksmen. I think this is a much more reliable source of marker light support. Plus, we have all of our marker lights in our Fire Warrior units. So we have 1 Cutter Fireblade for marker lights. We have 2 Firesight Marksmen for marker lights. That's a pretty good shot at getting at least 3. And then you can spend a CP to use uplink marker light, and boom, we're at 5. So you really don't need those extra ones in the Fire Warrior units, but if you need them, you have them, is the idea. So Firesight Marksmen are going to do a lot of lifting for you in the Marker Light department. A great choice because of that. Then we get into the Crisis Suits. Now, again, we don't have the bodyguards anymore just because I think that the drones are going to do the better bodyguarding, and we're sticking with just the Crisis Shazwi units. So we have a unit of Crisis Suits, 3-man unit with 2 Cyclic Ion Blasters and a Fusion Blaster each. This means that they're going to have a nice volume of fire while still giving them a little punch. And they come with 4 shield drones. In fact, I have 2 identical units to this. I almost forgot to mention, we have the Iridium armor on these guys. And notice I put this on the Shazwi. I don't put it on the Shazray because I want the Iridium armor to come into play when I want it to come into play. I don't want to have to sacrifice wounds on my Shazray and consequently potentially lose the leadership bonus that he confers by having him die because he's taking wounds right out of the gate. So instead, I put the Iridium Battlesuit on the Shazwi, and he's able to tank for the unit, initially potentially increasing the duration of their life cycle. I don't know, you know what I'm trying to say. By having the Iridium armor up front, we're able to tank with it and keep the Crisis Suits on the board for longer than if it was on our Shazray and we had to either lose him right away or not actually use the Iridium armor until he was the only guy left. So I think this is the way to run Iridium. Iridium is a great upgrade too. You get that 2-up armor save, super helpful, can make a big difference. So having that on there, good way to go. Now, we could lose the Iridium armor. We could switch things around here. We could drop one of the strike teams and then add another unit of shield drones, right? If we really wanted to, we could increase the shield drone presence here. I don't think that that's necessary. I think we have a lot of shield drones already. Well, we have six with the broadsides, 8 with the shield drones. I mean, that's a pretty good number. That's 14 drones. You could get more, certainly, but I think there's kind of, there's definitely a trade-off, right? If we increase our shield drones, then potentially we're losing firepower. So, it's kind of up to you on how you really want to play that, but you could certainly lose a strike team and gain a unit of shield drones with what we have here. I think this list does well. It still maintains a lot of the same elements. We still have our fire base with the broadsides and fire warriors, marker light support, and then we have our kind of midfield units, our stealth units that are our flanking units with the 2 Ghostkeels and the big unit of stealth suits, and then finally we have our punchers. We have our deep strikers that are coming in the form of crisis suits and that cold star. So overall, I think this list would be pretty bitey. I think it would work pretty well. The inclusion of these more stealth elements maybe are not super meta focused, but overall I like the list. I think it plays well and maintains the feel of that original list as well. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What things would you change? Which things would you stay the same or keep the same? And as always, thanks for watching and happy wargaming. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. This channel is made possible by my supporters over on Patreon. If you enjoyed this video, consider joining our community over on Patreon or continuing the discussion on our associated Discord server. Special thanks to Shifty, Jim Bob, Scott Heater, Nick Steele, Jared Egler, Tao Oswell, Zach Brooks, Stephen Cohen, Jake Johnson, Eric Jackson, Benjamin, Julian Peck, Andy M. Young, Giovanni DiMaggio, and Chris Kessler.